All right, let's jump right in and take a look at this week's report from the Colombo Stock Exchange. We're going to make sense of all these numbers and get a really clear picture of what the market story was this week. You know, if you've ever looked at one of these reports and it just felt like a wall of data, trust me, you're not alone. But believe it or not, there's a real story hiding inside all that information. And our job today? It's to find it. And I promise you, by the end of this quick run-through, you'll be able to look at any weekly report and know exactly which numbers actually matter. So let's get into it. Okay, so where do we start? Well, first things first, we always look at the big picture. Before we get lost in the details, we just need to answer one simple question. Was it a good week for the market or a not so good week? And the easiest way to take the market's pulse is the All Share Price Index, or as you'll always see it, the ASPI. Just think of it like the market's final grade for the week. It boils everything down into one single number. So, for the week that ended on March 13th, the market's report card closed at 21,692.55. But, you know, a number by itself doesn't really mean much, does it? We need some context. And here's that context. The market dropped by just over 1,000 points compared to last week. Whoa, that's a pretty serious move down. Right away, that tells us the general feeling out there was negative. And to put that into a percentage, it's a 4.44% slide in just 1 week. So our first takeaway is crystal clear. It was a tough week for the market as a whole. All right, so we know the market went down, but the next question is, how did it go down? Was it a quiet little slide, or was there a ton of action, a lot of money changing hands? This is all about the activity. The main thing we look at here is called turnover, which is basically just the total value of all the shares that were traded. This week, that number was about 24 billion rupees. And that's really interesting because it tells us that even though prices were falling, a lot of trading was going on. This was a very engaged market, not one that was sitting on the sidelines. Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. Who was doing all this trading? Well, you can see there's a huge imbalance here. Out of that 24 billion in trading, local investors were responsible for more than 23 billion of it. That tells you that local sentiment is the engine driving this market right now. And this chart just says it all, doesn't it? A massive 97.5% of the buying was local. So for this week, the story of the Colombo Stock Exchange was almost completely a domestic one. So the market was down, but very active and driven by local players. Now let's zoom in. Because even on a red week like this, there are always some individual stocks that shine and others that really struggle. Let's see who they were. Okay, on the winning side, wow, the SoftLogic Group had an absolutely fantastic week, totally bucking the market trend. SoftLogic itself was up over 36%. And you can see its capital and finance companies were also right there in the top 5. A huge week for them for sure. And then you have the other end of the spectrum. It was a really brutal week for Palm Garden Hotel, which saw its value get hammered, down by a massive 92%. Ouch. I mean, that's the kind of dramatic move that just leaps off the page. We've got the direction, we've got the activity level, and we've seen the standouts. Now for the last piece of the puzzle, we just need to zoom out one more time and ask, was this week a total fluke, or is it part of a bigger pattern? This chart here shows us the turnover for the last 4 weeks. And as you can see, this week's 24 billion is right in line with what we've been seeing. Yeah, it's a small dip from last week, but the bigger story is that trading activity has been consistently high for a while now. And that's pretty much it. We just walked through the story of the week. So to wrap it all up, let's just turn this into a super simple checklist you can use every single time. So just remember these 3 things. First, check the index. What's the grade on the report card, up or down? Second, follow the turnover. How much action was there and who was driving it? And third, spot the movers. Which stocks had a really dramatic week? You ask those 3 questions, you've got the whole story. So now you have the tools to actually read the story the market is telling us each week. You know how to make sense of the past. The only question left is, what's the story going to be next time?